We're excited to have Blaine Fowler back in Studio B, Uncle B, in the hizzy. Let's start with the Twitter question, my friend. What was your biggest takeaway from 2017 BYU Football Media Day?
Well, from a not affecting this fall's team thing, I loved the whole section on Lavelle Edwards and the coaching tree. I mean, I know most of those guys, but until you see it graphically, this coaching tree and the impact he's had on so many coaches in college football and in the NFL. I mean, when they put up the tree and they start to look at who, came from Mike Holmgren's tree and Andy Reid's tree, the number of head guys in the NFL that really were directly influenced by Lavelle and the way he does things is remarkable.
And Brian Billick, too.
Yeah, and that's right. Look at Brian's tree as well. It's Lavelle's coaching tree, even though I knew it until I saw it the other day graphically represented, I was like, whoa, I forgot the impact that this man had on football and on the way coaches coach. So that was big for me. That was kind of surprising. Even though I know all of those guys, it was surprising to me when I saw it. But what wasn't surprising to me was with the folks in studio and the people that we had come in via video, the Mike Holmgrens and the Brian Billicks and Brian Mitchell and Andy and all these guys that came in, there was one consistent theme, and that was that Lavelle Edwards cared about the individual, and they all learned how to treat people, how to treat a coaching staff, how to treat athletes from Lavelle Edwards. That's the consistent theme that every single one of those guys took with them in their coaching career. Brian Billick's a really fiery guy on the sidelines. Andy's a little bit more like Lavelle in his temperament on the sidelines. So, each of them has their own personality in coaching, but the single common theme for every single one of those guys was Lavelle taught me how to treat people. And you know what? Because they treated people with respect and gave them responsibility, and because Lavelle was great at delegating and empowering and seeing things in people that they didn't see in themselves, those guys assembled phenomenal coaching staffs around them, and then that's why that coaching tree is so huge.
Surround yourself with greatness.
Yeah, someone should write a book with that title. Wait,
hey,
someone already did. De Hongre.
So that's my off the football field that doesn't really impact. Well, it does impact because Kalani has taken a lot of those philosophies.
I was just going to say that, Blaine. One of his disciples of that kind of coaching is Kalani Sitake, and now we're seeing it in his very personable and family-oriented recruiting.
Yeah, it's having a big impact. And the young players, so maybe an on-the-field thing, Ed Lamb made a comment at the media day that, there's 7 or 8 players on this roster that have NFL talent now. And I thought, oh, well, that's an interesting comment. And then you take the step from that is, okay, so where BYU's lagged behind the University of Utah the last couple years in putting guys at the next level, if there's a bunch of young guys in this program now they've recruited the last few years or that they're developing right now that are NFL talent, that is going to change. So that gap is going to change, and we're going to see more guys. That's a direct result of the way they're recruiting and the kinds of kids that they're bringing in and the way they're going to develop them. So that was a comment from Ed that kind of stood out to me. Wow, okay, that's good. So didn't have a bunch drafted this last year, but let's look over the next 2 or 3 years and see if that increase, if that will increase. I believe it will increase. There's some really, really good young talent on this football team.
Ed Lamb kind of reiterated that thought to me when we were in Southern California just before the Fan Fest. He said, if there's one thing I know, it's that we are getting better from an individual football standpoint. Our recruiting is getting better. We have better talent in the program.
Yeah, I agree 100%. On the defensive side of the ball, because Ed and Eliza and Kalani addressed the defense, they were really good defensively. The numbers were displayed graphically. They were great in scoring defense. They were good in total defense. They were really good in forcing turnovers last year. Elite. We can even say that. When you're in the top 10, you're elite, right?
Of them? Number 2?
Yeah. So they were elite in terms of turnovers last year, and we don't throw that term around.
Thank you for not using it in vain, Blaine.
It's so defensively, I think they just pick up where they left off. I don't know if they have to be better. They just have to be as good. And talking to the coaches off air and what we saw on air, I feel like they're just going to take a step forward this year. Worst case scenario, they're as good as they were last year, and that's good enough. The thing that I was interested in is the conversation with Ty, where he talked about how confident they are in the offensive line. That makes a big difference. When BYU dominates on the line of scrimmage, they're better. But there's one area where I'm still going, I didn't get any answers from media today, and that is the running back situation. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. I was really interested to see if they would come in there and say, hey, over the summer, Squally really stepped up, or Tolotau's the guy that's going to be the guy, or we're really going to rely on these two guys. Ty said, well, we have 7 really good guys. And they all have different skill sets. And so going into this thing, we're going to have to figure out a way to play those 7 guys.
Yeah, and he referenced we're going to use a bunch of different formations to try and figure that out.
Yeah, and so here's the hard thing. And I can tell you that Ty, in the back of his mind, has to be thinking, but I really hope a couple of these guys step up. I really hope in the course of fall camp that 2 or 3 of these guys become the obvious choice, that they've advanced their game so much that they've separated themselves. Because 7 guys is hard to negotiate and to do logistically. So even if they're all talented, now you're the offensive coordinator and you got that offensive staff. You're trying to decide what play is the best play in this situation against that defense. And now we call it, oh, and by the way, who's the best running back that we put in that formation and in this situation? So it's just an extra thing to think about. And so I'm a little concerned about that. I'm not concerned about the talent level. I'm a little concerned that we're going into fall camp and trying to have somebody step up, or maybe if it's even only 2 or 3 guys step up and be the men rather than a group of 7 guys at running back. And so, and Ty's, these guys are completely transparent when you talk to them, which I love. And so it's got to be a concern of his. They're not concerned about the talent. They're concerned about somebody being the man. And
Yes.
remember, we're replacing a guy that's not, the kind of guy you get very often at BYU. In Jamal Williams, it's a bona fide NFL running back, and so you don't get those very often. So who is it going to be? Is Dye going to step? Is it going to be Burt, who comes back from a red shirt? Is Tolotau going to be the guy that can carry it every down? Is KJ Hall the guy, or is he just a third down back? Can Squally be the every down guy and emerge and be Jamal? There's a lot of questions at running back, and I didn't get very many answers at media today, so I was a little concerned about that. I'll tell you where I really saw confidence from everybody on the coaching staff is they're excited about this tight ends and wide receivers group.
Man.
And let's talk about that. In 2015, Tanner Mangum had a fantastic freshman season. I think part of the reason is because BYU had a really good group of receivers. That obviously helps. 6'6" Mitch Matthews, 6'5" Taryn Houck.
Who was more of a tight end, let's be honest.
Right,
Nick,
tight inside.
Yeah, a flex tight end. Nick Kurtz at 6'6". Devon Blackman with some speed. At looking at the group the BYU expects to contribute, there's not a guy over 6'3" outside of the tight ends. It's just a little different. It's just a little different.
And they feel really good. They feel like athletically, so in terms of flat-out team speed, they're better there. And there's some guys that will go battle for the ball. Talon Shumway is going to be a guy that I think will really explode on the scene that we really haven't seen much this year. And he's got there's Shumway, there's Achille Davis, that they're not 6'6" guys, but they're strong guys with good vertical jumps that are good size receivers that can go get it. Grant Jones is a guy that's 6'5" or 6'6" that nobody knows about, that can be a guy that can go battle for footballs and can be, if you go back and watch Grant Jones' high school film, which I've done, he came and they moved him to the defense and he played safety and then he moved to outside safety. He moved to outside linebacker. The fact that they put him at safety tells you that they went, wow, this is a really athletic guy that's long, right? So now with the new staff, they go, maybe this guy should go back to wide receiver. And he said, hey, this is what I'm most comfortable about. This is what I played in high school. Go watch his high school film and you'll watch play after play where the quarterback just threw the ball up and Grant Jones just out-jumped everybody and went and took the football from people.
It'd be nice to give Tanner Mangum that option.
Yeah, it would be great.
He took advantage of that option a couple of years
and then
ago.
there's been great
fantastic
speed.
way,
Guys like Hefo's got speed. Joan Trineman has looked really good. He ran a ridiculous time in his 40, electronically timed 40.
4.32.
Yeah, that's craziness, right? So they've got some speed to go with that. Bo Tanner's got good speed.
Like a Simon.
So at the wide receiver group, I'm okay with 7 or 8 or 9 guys rotating through there. That's normal. You're running them in with plays. You're doing things. It's okay to have a group of different guys, and the wide receivers coaches sending them in. Hey, it's this formation, and that group knows they go out on the field. And so I'm a little more okay with that than having 7 running backs, right? And then at the tight end position, I think Bushman really accounted himself well in spring ball, and they're excited about his ability to stretch the field and run and be a combo tight end that can block and do it all, like a Chad Lewis or an Atula Mealy. And Marshall's back and Baldery's back, who really improved last year. And then they moved Moroni inside to play tight end. And he reminds me a little bit of Johnny Harleen in the skill set where he's going to be able to run away from people and stretch the defense from the inside of the offense down the middle of the field and create more room for Tanner to throw underneath. Because if a safety doesn't respect him, he's going to run right by the safety. And now there's that huge intermediate area between the linebackers and the safeties that becomes open when you have a tight end that can run. And so Ty has a lot of weapons and more experience offensively this year. And as I said, if the defense is just as good as they were last year and this offense takes a step forward, well, we're in for some really exciting things this fall. So it could be fun. So I was really encouraged by Media Day. The only thing I'm still going, I just don't know. What about the running backs? Is somebody going to step up? And I didn't see anything in Media Day that said to me, hey, a couple of guys are really taking the leadership role.
Here's the litmus test. When it's 3rd and 3 in the 4th quarter,
Who's getting the rock?
who's getting the rock? Like, that's your guy, right? Who's getting the rock? And that's it. And we don't know the answer to that question.
Blaine, I want to ask you before you go about the ESPN contract extension with BYU through 2019 and how that relates to BYU football and their immediate future as an independent. What do you think about all of that?
I think it was big news. I've kind of the confidence that Tom Homo has had over this past year as people have said, well, what are you going to do? The contract's coming to an end in a couple of years. This is a confidence boost, but I think Tom knew that all along. They have a good relationship with the folks at ESPN. The big concern for me was I have a lot of friends that are full-time employees of ESPN. I work for ESPN, but I'm a contract employee. And they've made this big fundamental shift at ESPN away from people that are full-time employees. They let a bunch of on-air people go. And I think the question was, whoa, is ESPN okay financially? What's going on? Is BYU going to get this contract again? Is it going to be for as much money? Talking to folks, it's just ESPN changing the way they're structured so that they can be more profitable. I think there's still plenty of money and margin in what they're doing.
Model's changed,
and so that it's just a change in business model. It doesn't mean, hey, ESPN's not healthy. So BYU has a very healthy sports partner in ESPN. This sends a message that ESPN wants to continue. And Tom alluded to the fact that on Media Day that, oh yeah, and we're having conversations about what we do after the end of this contract 4 years from now. And I'm confident that if BYU's still in independence at that point, that ESPN is going to want to up it again because BYU is a profitable enterprise for them. It's a profitable property for them. They get great ratings when they play on ESPN. And for BYU in independence, it gives them exposure. I can't remember which show on Media Day put the graphic up of who has played the most nationally televised games, and it's BYU right up there in the top 3 with big programs, way more than the University of Utah right up the road. And so this is a good model. That sends a message that ESPN is still a solid business partner of BYU's and that BYU can survive in independence.
Great stuff, Blaine. Always nice to have you back in Studio B.
Good to see you guys. We got to get out and play some golf.
Absolutely.
Let's go in this next
You can
segment.
just settle down your travel
Okay,
schedule
you know
a little
what?
bit.
Let's just have everybody from in the control room come and run the show, and let's just go play right now.
I've been asked